In a quiet neighborhood where rules rule everything, one man's passion became a problem, but when the noise complaints turned personal. He didn't fight with words, he built something extraordinary. This is the story of how Leo Martinez turned silence into his greatest act of defiance. Leo Martinez had never considered himself a rebel. He was more of a rhythm man, someone who found peace in percussion and joy in noise. His drums weren't just instruments, they were therapy, memory, and momentum. But in the quiet suburb of Glen Ridge, passion came with consequences. The conflict didn't start with sirens. It started with Karen Peterson. Karen was the kind of neighbor who knew every trash pickup schedule, logged HOA infractions in a color-coded binder, and referred to herself as a protector of the neighborhood's peace. She believed in silence the way some people believed in church. And Leo's Saturday barbecue, complete with his modest drum setup and a few friends, offended every note of that doctrine. At first, Leo thought it was a misunderstanding. Karen showed up with a strained smile and a printed-out copy of the town's noise ordinance. He turned the volume down, apologized, and assumed that would be the end of it. But when two patrol cars rolled up 20 minutes later, Leo understood exactly what kind of neighbor he was dealing with. "She says you're running a live concert," one officer said, glancing at Leo's modest speaker. "Just keep it down." They left without incident. But Karen didn't. As she walked back across the lawn, she turned and said, low enough that only Leo heard, "One day, I'll find out what you're really building back there." That stuck. Leo didn't know what stung more, the implication that he was doing something wrong, or the fact that she seemed so sure he didn't belong. He had worked hard for this house, this yard, this patch of peace, and he was done letting Karen define it. That night, a new rhythm took hold of him, not of drums, but of resolve. He started researching soundproofing, diving into acoustic insulation, decoupled walls, rubber gaskets, and ventilation traps. At first, it was just a thought experiment, but the more he read, the more real the idea became. If Karen wanted silence, he would give her silence. Absolute, infallible, impenetrable silence. Enter Barry. Barry was an oddball contractor Leo found online. A former touring bassist turned acoustic engineer. He showed up in a Hawaiian shirt and steel-toe boots, looked at Leo's sketch of a windowless backyard structure, and nodded like he'd seen it 100 times. "You're not the first to want a drum in peace," Barry said, "but you might be the first to do it in the middle of suburbia." They called it the Silence Project. Construction began within days. To the outside world, it looked like Leo was building a storage shed, modest, boring, legal. But inside, Barry worked magic. The walls were double-layered with mass-loaded vinyl and sound-dampening insulation. The floor floated on neoprene pads. The door sealed with magnetic compression strips. Even the ventilation system was baffled and silenced. Karen watched from her window like a hawk in a cardigan. "Hope you're not building something illegal," she shouted one day. Camera in hand, Leo waved. "Storage shed, totally within code." Barry winked. 3 weeks later, the shed was complete. Leo stood inside with his drum kit, under a single hanging light. The walls absorbed every vibration. He struck the snare, then the bass, then let loose a solo. He screamed into the void just to test it. The room held everything in. It was beautiful. Then came the test. Leo threw a launch party for his closest friends. No big speakers, no food trucks. Just him, his kit, and 10 of his closest supporters. Everyone packed into the tiny arena, excited and skeptical. He closed the door. The first beat dropped. Outside, Karen sat on her porch with her phone recording. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Nothing. Not a whisper. She got up, walked closer, rewound the footage, held it to her ear. Silence. Inside, Leo hit his final crescendo. The group exploded in cheers, muffled into invisibility by the walls. For the first time in months, Leo felt fully himself. That night, Karen called the HOA, the police, and even city zoning. But everything Leo built was within regulation. She even filed a complaint with the local board, which reviewed his plans and signed off unanimously. Legally sound, morally victorious. Karen's power, once rooted in intimidation, dissolved. What she didn't know, what Leo never revealed, was that he had been documenting everything. Every passive-aggressive note, every baseless complaint, every moment she escalated without reason. Leo had spoken to a community legal advocate months prior, just in case. His documentation helped push the HOA to institute a new policy, a formal review board for recurring neighborhood disputes. For the first time, complaints like Karen's required evidence. And in Glen Ridge, where appearances meant everything, no one wanted to be the next Karen. But Leo didn't gloat. Instead, he sent Karen a polite note thanking her for her concern and letting her know she would no longer be disturbed. No sarcasm, just peace. Weeks later, Karen stopped watching, stopped shouting across lawns. She became just another window with curtains drawn. The Silence Project had done more than contain sound. It had rewritten the rhythm of the neighborhood. Inside his arena, Leo played differently now. Not louder, not even prouder, just freer. Every beat echoed the truth he had earned. Some battles aren't won by shouting louder, but by outthinking the noise. In a world of complaints and control, Leo had found a way to reclaim his joy, not by fighting back, but by building forward. And in that silence, his music was finally heard by the only person it ever needed to reach.